All right, welcome to Source Material, everybody. Hey, before we get started, just wanted to let you know we've got a little bit of an introduction here where we talk about the upcoming series, Alias, that we're getting ready to discuss, and a reading of the introduction to the first trade paperback. If you want to skip all that and get right into the episode proper, feel free to just fast forward about 6 minutes, and you should get right there. All right, enjoy the show.
Get ready to dive into the comic book realm where heroes rise and villains take the helm. We're here to dissect the stories and the art. On Source Material, we tear the panels apart.
Welcome back to Source Material. Today, we're exploring Alias, a groundbreaking series that reshaped superhero narratives in a way only Marvel's Max imprint could allow. First up, let's meet the creative powerhouses behind Alias. Brian Michael Bendis, a virtuoso of the comic book world, brought us deep character studies and riveting plots from his early indie days to his transformative work at Marvel. His partner in crime, Michael Gaydos, delivers a stark realism with his art that perfectly complements the gritty and raw narrative of Alias. Together, they crafted a series that stands out for its depth and authenticity. Alias came into being as one of the pioneering series under Marvel's Max imprint, designed specifically for mature audiences. This imprint allowed Bendis and Gaydos the freedom to explore darker themes and more complex characters, unencumbered by the conventional limits of mainstream superhero comics. Alias is a testament to what happens when creators are given the liberty to push boundaries and delve into the more adult aspects of storytelling. At the heart of Alias is Jessica Jones, a former superhero named Jewel, who hung up her cape to become a private investigator. Created by Bendis and Gaydos and first appearing in Alias No. 1, on shelves in September 2001, Jessica is not your typical hero. Her battles are more personal, her demons more real. Through her eyes, we explore themes of trauma, identity, and resilience, making her one of the most relatable and human characters in the Marvel Universe. Join us today as we look at Volume 1 of Alias, exploring the first 9 issues of the series. Issues 1 through 5 are a story titled Alias Investigations, and issues 6 through 9 tell a tale titled B-Level.
Fuck. I'm sorry. I know that may have startled some of you, or even offended you. I didn't mean to upset you. But it is quite remarkable how a simple word, a 4-letter word, can bring about such a reaction, or, in the case of the book you are holding, a revolution. Seeing that word on the first page and the first line of the first chapter of Alias wasn't the first time I had seen it in a comic book. Certainly, it wasn't the first time I had seen it in print or even heard it. So, what was the big deal? I don't remember seeing it in a Marvel comic book. The same folks who had thrilled me with Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four were taking me on a bold new adventure into something they called the Max line. To put it simply, just as there have been G-rated and PG-rated movies in the United States for years, there are also R-rated films. These are more adult in nature, both in theme and in language. They are intended to reach out to an older audience. Over 17 is the idea. Welcome to Max, the comic book line for over 17-year-olds. Alias heralded the coming of Max and remains, in my opinion, the best of the bunch. That may or may not have something to do with the guy who has made his reputation on being something of a revolutionary himself. Alias's creator and writer, Brian Michael Bendis. If you don't know Bendis, that's what you call him. You will now. Bendis uses words the way they are meant to be in stories like these, as bullets that pierce your imagination and get stuck in your brain until he decides to operate on you with his next installment. In Alias, Jessica Jones is a not-so-hard-boiled detective whose life as a former superhero is both a blessing and a curse. In the opening scene, in a delightful homage to the classic film Chinatown, a husband finds out his wife has a secret through Jessica's detective work. Jessica isn't happy about this type of job, but like many gumshoes, it pays the bills. The scene plays much like you'd expect, but then Bendis throws you a fastball that's just his style. Oh, and you're not supposed to be able to hit Bendis's fastballs. You get hit by them. Don't worry. Bendis goes just as hard on his characters as he will on you. Jessica's world isn't pretty. There are no capes here, no secret headquarters, just the underbelly of the Marvel Universe cut open for all of us to be amazed by. There are twists and double crosses, and just when you think you've got it all figured out, forget it. Bendis is so far ahead of you, The only way to catch up is to turn the page, and even then, good luck. In the 1950s, these types of tales were called film noir. They were tales of bad men and often worse women who started out at the bottom of the well, only to find there was much farther to fall. Bendis has created something here for Marvel we should call comic book noir. His vision is executed by an extraordinary team of artists and editors. They are the filmmakers to his screenplay. Michael Gaydos pencils and inks each tale with all the grit and texture of the words, bringing life to Jessica and the less than lovely city in which she works. Matt Hollingsworth's colors then enhance the mood, drowning you in somber tones that match the images with perfection. Richard Starkings and Comicraft's Wes Abbott carve out Bendis' words so neatly, you almost can hear him reading them to you, or barking at you, as the case may be. And it's all kept under the watchful eyes of editors Stuart Moore, Kelly Lamy, and Nancy Dekejian. Like I said, Alias isn't pretty, but it sure as hell is fun. Welcome to the revolution. Jeff Loeb. Los Angeles, 2002.
All right, well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Source Material Comics Podcast. We are back, and it's a record breaker. We were just talking about it. This is the most successive issues that are going to have been covered on the Source Material Comics Podcast. I'm pretty sure the previous record was held by Maximum Carnage, which I think was 16 parts. We are talking 28 issues. And to join me on this journey, one Mark Radulich. Mark, tell the people what we're going to be embarking on here over the next 4 episodes. Tell them also why you decided to do this.
So I've had the Alias, or Jessica Jones Alias, trade paperbacks, all 4 volumes. Volume 1 is Alias 1 through 9. Volume 2, Come Home, is 11 through 15. Volume 3, The Underneath, as opposed to Life of Agony, The Underground, was issue number 10, which was kind of like a one-shot deal, like Rob Van Dam. And then issue 16 through 21. And then finally, Alias Volume 4, The Secret Origins of Jessica Jones, issues 22 to 28. Mm-hmm. And I've had these, and so it was created by Brian Michael Bendis, who me and Sheehan did his Superman run a ways back.
Okay.
It was written by Brian Michael Bendis. It was the artist by Michael Gaydos. And it was from the Max series about the Punisher stuff from
yeah,
with polar bears and shit. And Nucci, who got that ill communication. So I've had these on my shelves for a couple of years now. And I think I bought them at around the time that they were doing the Jessica Jones series on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
With Krysten Ritter, and I believe it was David Tennant, who was the Purple Man.
Oh yeah.
Carrie Ann Moss was in this. This is where they introduced Mike Coulter as Luke Cage. He got his own series that was half a rap concert, and it drove Jesse and Robert to the wall.
Hope I have another concert.
So I believe this was based, at least in part, on the Alias run. In fact, Ritter was cast as Jones in December of 2014, and the series took specific influence from the character's creators Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos. Filming took place in New York City in areas like Old Hell's Kitchen. This had a very heavy influence on the Jessica Jones show. We did all 3 seasons of it. Robert and I really liked the first season. There was a lot about the third season we really liked, and then the second season we wanted to shoot everyone that worked on it. No buys, not recommended.
Yeah.
I think overall we really enjoyed the Jessica Jones series. I know there was some grousing about it from some of our more masculine friends. They did not want to watch a superhero show that delved into a woman's PTSD. I was all about it, being a mental health person and all. Yeah. So I bought these books back then, and I got as far as the first trade, and I just we never covered it in Source Material, much to my chagrin. I never went back, and I never finished reading the other 3 trades, and they just sat on my shelf for a while. And so when I was looking for something to do with you and I that would, because we break these shows down, we cover a lot of material. When we started doing these marathon recording sessions, we would pick 3 books, and then that was 3 episodes, and it involved you for 2 months, because then you would do these opposite with either other source materials you were doing with other people or unspoken issues. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I really want to start wading through some of these graphic novels and trade paperbacks that I have, but they're lengthy. These are quite big tomes. So we did with Plane, The Mask. I said, you know what? Let me just pick a book. So we started picking bigger books with more stories in them. And I was like, you know what? I have these 4 volumes of Jessica Jones here. I want to read them. I want to have a reason to read them. So I'll talk about them with Jesse, and that's 4 shows for you. But beyond that, watching the show, watching Jessica Jones, all 3 seasons, I really began to take an interest in the character. We did some other Jessica Jones trades around the times that we were doing synergy with the TV reviews. If you go back in the archives, we actually did 2 different Jessica Jones trades. They were just more modern ones, if you'll remember.
Yeah, this is, as we reach the end of this series, Jessica Jones gets brought into the Marvel Universe proper. So, yeah, what we covered, I think, was pretty much standard Marvel fare for Jessica Jones.
I'm actually looking on W2M now to see what Jessica Jones stuff we did.
Tell you, I've got this spreadsheet right here.
Yeah, so there's Uncaged 2016.
Okay, there you go.
I know the second one, but whether or not it made it to W2M, who knows?
Jessica Jones, Volume 2, The Secrets of Maria Hill.
That's the one. I knew it was something having to do with S.H.I.E.L.D., and I couldn't remember what the whole name was.
Right.
I was definitely confusing that with the Secret Origins of Jessica Jones in my head.
Yeah.
Because I remember I went crazy. We covered this. It was the Secrets of Maria Hill.
I remember now, yeah.
So I totally dig the Jessica Jones character. She has a lot of pathos. She has a lot of trauma. She's somebody who, you know me, I'm getting kind of bored with the whole superhero genre, but I don't necessarily dislike reading Marvel or DC. I just have to figure out, like we did with the Lois Lane book or this one, I have to figure out sort of where my interests lie. And I like the Jessica Jones character. A lot of superheroes accidentally gets powers and then figures, well, I might as well be a superhero because that's what everyone does. So she puts on a dopey costume and she does it, and she meets all kinds of horror. Bad things happen to her via the Purple Man. And then now she's just trying to pick up the broken pieces of her life, and skipping way ahead, way out of this series. She ends up having a baby with Luke Cage, and she's just the kind of hero that would appeal to not just me, but also street level starch.
That's right.
You know, she's somebody who is superhero adjacent, but isn't necessarily a part of that world. And she's very real. She's very gritty. She's somebody that, if it wasn't a dopey comic book, I would absolutely like. I think it's why the series works as well as it did, because it's just a very relatable character. I think we all know Jessica Jones in our life to one degree or another. Somebody who's just been put through the mill and is vulnerable, but also sardonic.
Yeah. And what would it be like for that person to have superpowers?
Right. Not only that, and one of the things I love about this series, which we're going to talk about, is the series sort of acts as almost like a parody or satire of the superhero world. It definitely has that approach to, okay, how would the rest of the world, once they got over the stargazing, what would the rest of the world do? How would they act? In a world where superhero exists, how do normal people behave? Well, some people treat them as celebrities. Some people hate them. There'd be racism. There'd be prejudice. There'd be cops that are put off by the presence of superheroes that only make their life more difficult when they're not protecting them from alien invasions.
Right.
And Jessica Jones fits right in that world, which I love. I can't wait to start talking about these books.
Okay. All right. Yeah, just to throw out, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have something prior to us talking about Brian Michael Bendis, but just kind of give you an idea. This series launches in 2001, and it's part of the Max imprint, which is the more adult-themed, explicit theme.
Word is a curse word.
Right. Part of Marvel. And so he was instrumental in helping getting that started. So we have Brian Michael Bendis to kind of thank for that. I mean, he wrote some comics. After this, I mean, some of these things you're going to recognize, and a lot of these things I think I've covered on here. Avengers Disassembled from 2004 to 2005. He wrote that.
We covered.
Secret War, which was not the Secret Wars that you're thinking of. This was a small espionage kind of deal that dealt with S.H.I.E.L.D. from 2004, 2005. House of M, which I've covered on here in 2005. Secret Invasion from 2008. Siege 2010. Age of Ultron 2013. So that is right off the top of his wiki here. A lot of those books, a lot of those stories are some of the more memorable things that's happened in the Marvel universe. And I remember we had a big episode when he said he was going over to DC.
Breaking Bendis.
Yeah.
I remember when you put the title of, I'm like, what did you do to this man?
Yeah. So I knew he was a high caliber writer here, and it's kind of earlier on in his career, especially with Marvel Comics, which is great. Now he's had a little bit of experience writing comics prior to this, but man, can he tell a tale sometimes. And the way that it's told is interesting and fun.
He's like the anti-George Lucas. He absolutely writes people so well. He knows how people, based on what I got out of his Alias comic and what I remember of Superman, Man of Steel, he seems to get the cadence and rhythm of the way people talk to each other.
Oh, yeah, dialogue. I've heard a lot of people talk about his dialogue and how he handles that. And yeah, that's evident, very evident. And that's Alias in 2001. So, right. All right. Well, if you're ready, man, I'll go ahead and I'll throw out. So our first story is going to be Alias Investigations. All right.
Alias issues 1 through 5, Alias Investigations. On comic book shelves starting September 6th, 2001. Written by Brian Michael Bendis. Art by Michael Gaydos. Lettered by Richard Starkings, Wes Abbott, and Oscar Gongora. Colored by Matthew Hollingsworth. In New York City, private investigator Jessica Jones delivers proof of a client's wife's infidelity, exposing her as a mutant. The client's violent reaction prompts Jessica to throw him through her office window, drawing the attention of the NYPD and revealing her past as a superhero. Seeking comfort, she heads to Luke Cage's bar, leading to a passionate night together. The next day, a desperate woman pleads for Jessica's help in finding her missing sister, Miranda Pritchett. Jessica reluctantly takes the case and discovers Miranda's boyfriend secretly transforming into Captain America. As Jessica delves deeper, she uncovers a conspiracy threatening to unravel the superhero community, pulling her back into a dangerous world she thought she had left behind. A seemingly routine missing person case becomes entangled with hidden truths and deception, challenging Jessica to navigate this newfound complexity. After inadvertently capturing footage of Captain America's secret identity, Jessica returns home, confirming her footage and contemplating its use as leverage. She finds her client's phone number disconnected and discovers a crime scene at Miranda's address, leading her to seek help from Luke Cage, who turns her away. Jessica's attempt to contact Steve Rogers at Avengers Mansion is thwarted by their mission deployment. Back at her office, NYPD Detective Paul Hall questions her about Miranda's murder, presenting evidence that she was at the crime scene. Jessica lies about her involvement, but Hall insists she accompany him to the station, further entangling her investigation. At the police station, Jessica endures a grueling wait before Hall resumes questioning, insinuating she might suffer from multiple personality disorder. Her anger is restrained by Matt Murdock's timely arrival, ensuring her release without charges and advising her to rest. Determined to uncover the truth, Jessica enlists Carol Danvers' help, using Avengers resources to track her client's phone number, which leads to LW's Enterprises, connected to Stephen Keaton's presidential campaign. Realizing she's been manipulated into capturing footage to discredit the president, Jessica's situation grows more perilous. In Washington, D.C., she confronts David Lawson about his involvement and, after a brutal fight with Michael Man Mountain Marco, extracts information linking the scheme to Mr. Zalmas, who plans to expose Captain America for political revenge. S.H.I.E.L.D. intervenes, arresting Zalmas and dismantling the conspiracy. Back in New York, Jessica watches Stephen Keaton withdraw from the presidential race and destroys the wire shield placed on her. Steve Rogers visits, requesting the tape of his identity, and reassures Jessica of her worth, offering support if she ever needs it. Contemplating his words, Jessica considers returning to superhero life while reconnecting with her friend Carol Danvers.
I'm just going to read to you here the big points of the plot, and then we'll talk about some of the key moments here too. You just step in if you want to stop me on anything. I've got some questions obviously afterwards, but I most likely I'm putting the synopsis in post anyway. But here's the plot, some plot points of Alias Investigation. So we're opening up brand new from issue 1 to issue 5. Jessica Jones, she's a private investigator. She, I think at the beginning of this, she's talking to a man and explains to him that, your wife's a mutant. And then there's a big to-do after that because he didn't want to hear anything about that. And they end up getting into a scuffle. She throws the guy through the window of her office. The police show up, and obviously they are amazed that she's actually was a superhero at one time, looking at the pictures that were on her wall where she was hanging out with the Avengers. Then we meet Miranda Pritchett, who hires Jessica to find her missing sister. And then I'm sorry. It's not Miranda. Miranda's the sister. I can't remember the sister's name that hired her. But anyway, Miranda Pritchett's the one that's missing. So Jessica Jones does her private investigator thing, and turns out she finds that, well, she's laying low because Miranda's boyfriend is Captain America. And she films Steve Rogers on top of a roof putting his costume on. So his identity at this point, nobody knows who Captain America is. And I think she's worried somebody's playing her, wanting her to has this on camera. She's going to get into some kind of deep trouble. Somebody's going to come after her, whatever. She's really worried about having this on tape, and she doesn't understand who did this. Jessica's investigation reveals a conspiracy linked to Stephen Keaton's presidential campaign. And that's apparently the guy that was behind. But anyway, somebody was behind the scenes that got Jessica Jones to get this inadvertently, and that was going to be used in order to sway a presidential election. S.H.I.E.L.D. intervenes, dismantling the conspiracy. Steve Rogers visits Jessica, offering support and asking for the tape of his identity, which she's clearly, I don't think she has any problem giving that to him. So some key moments between issues 1 and 5. She has a passionate night with Luke Cage.
Oh, that's what you're going to call it?
Passionate.
Visitor in the hoo-ha, got you all in check. Quote, I would not call that passionate.
Right.
It doesn't understand how people work.
It's got to censor it somehow. I mean, I
want you to put in the ChatGPT, interpret the following phrase. I let him do me in the butt so I could feel something because I was feeling nothing emotionally.
Oh, man.
I can't answer this.
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen.
Boy, if I had a nickel for every time I got one of those, I could pay for my divorce.
She also runs into Matt Murdock, so Daredevil's a little bit of a part in this as well.
Speaking of coming out with someone's identity, I think that's why I also thought this was during Civil War, because they were like, "Oh, we outed Matt Murdock," and I guess, are you aware of that going on in the main Daredevil series?
That's I assumed it. I don't know for sure. My guess is that this is something. I can't remember who they said did it. I'm sure it was the Kingpin. The Kingpin probably had some kind of thing involved, but yeah, it sounds like. Because that takes up a lot of his time, and that's a big central part of this book. I mean, I should say central, but I mean, if Daredevil shows up, he's always worried, or something's going on to where he's got somebody hounding him about the fact that he's Daredevil. Matt Murdock has to deal with that now. She gets into a fight with Man Mountain Marco, promptly beats his ass and takes him back to the guy that...
swear to God, I thought that was the Juggernaut.
His name is the Man Mountain Marco.
That's what they call me at the Swinger Party House.
I wouldn't doubt it. Wouldn't doubt it at all. Steve Rogers, of course, she I wouldn't say idolizes him, but she has a lot of respect for him, what he's done. I mean, he's freaking Captain America. So it's almost like when she finally meets him, I remember he can't remember who she is. And he's like, I'm sorry, there's a lot of people. And then finally...
For him, the way that people have reverence for Lester in The Wire.
Okay.
It's towards the end of the series where I think it's the lawyer, the district attorney character, who's just like, did he get you with the dad voice? And it's like, he did. You know?
Yeah.
He has that patriarchal authority figure way about him that people just immediately react to him that way.
Patriarchal is a great way to describe it. So that's essentially Alias Investigations. Mm-hmm. That's where we get our introduction to Jessica Jones. She gets set on this case. She ends up having some dealings with Captain America. And at the end of this, Captain America's like, look, if you ever need my help or whatever, I appreciate what you've done for me here. Let us know. Hey, we're always here if you need us.
I've been dying to say this, but I didn't want to keep interrupting you, so I kept interrupting you.
Oh, go ahead.
I interrupt you with a major thing I wanted to talk about, which is... in so many movies, TV shows, comics that we read, one of my major criticisms, and we just talked about this last night with Sons of Anarchy, where if the character is too much of a bag of shit, I don't care if they're the lead. I want them to fail. And then I find I myself just watching this show, hoping the lead fails. And the writers, because they're the lead of the show, has to keep finding ways for them to succeed until the network gives them the go-ahead to kill the show. Mm-hmm. You're being canceled. This is it for you. bring things to a close. And so now suddenly nothing goes right for Vic Mackey, and everything is going tits up, and he meets his ultimate doom. And it's like, okay, I wanted him to fail long before that because he's such a terrible human being.
Right.
One of the things about Jessica Jones that I really like is she's deep down inside not a bad person. She's somebody I'm rooting for through all 28 issues. And it's like, you might at first blush because she's so, like, I used the word sardonic before. She's unpleasant.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, you'll talk about it specifically, but I just want to address it in a very general way. Her interactions with Luke Cage and Scott Lang, the two men she's dating / drunk fucking throughout the series, we've all, maybe not you, but we've all who's been married since the age of 9. You get younger and younger every time I say that.
Yes, I noticed.
But most of us had a Jessica Jones in our life who were like, just tell me what's wrong. And she's like, no, I can't. And fuck you. And you're just like, I'm the one that's
I'm trying to help you. Yeah, I'm trying to help.
Here. I'm the one that's trying to be with you. And you're like abusing me. And
right.
So, like, Luke Cage and Scott Lang both are just kind of, what the fuck with you?
Oh, Luke has gone past that. At this point, you could tell that they had a relationship in this book that clearly went sour at one point. And Luke has finally had enough. Well, I shouldn't say had enough of her shit, but just basically doesn't let her shit get to him.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, is he knows that she is who she is and she acts the way that she acts. And there's not much that Luke Cage can do.
When you have a Jessica Jones in your life and you want her to be there, you have to kind of be a Luke Cage or a Scott Lang and kind of tolerate their insanity. Scott Lang especially, because Luke Cage was kind of like, could you not be a crazy bitch? And she's like, you're so right, Luke, I am. Sorry. Scott's doing the more simpier, more empathetic, being more emotional support for her. And she's just beating the shit out of him. And my point is that even with all of that, at first blush, you especially if you're a guy, you're reacting to this, you're like, Jessica Jones is terrible, and I hope she gets hit by the Infinity Gauntlet. I hope Silence just snaps her. But that's the thing, is that deep down inside, she's a really good person. When she does something, it's usually there's a greater good involved, or there's any kind of good involved. She's a hurt person. She's a traumatized person. She's a broken person. But that's all kind of on top of this core that in and of itself is good. And so I feel when she's berating Scott Lang and like won't talk about what happened with her and the Purple Man, I feel bad for her. I feel bad for Scott too. There's some pretty emotionally wrenching stuff that goes on in this book. And all I was trying to get at is, so that you can continue more linearly, so kind of all over the place, is the thing that kind of holds this book together is at no point can a rational person, a fair-minded person, be rooting against her. Like, right. As bad as she is at times, she's still at heart a good person.
Yeah.
And she's just struggling. And let me tell you how real that is. That when people have been put through the mill and they've had bad things happen to them, yeah, they act out, they tantrum, they don't handle things in the best emotional way that they can. And the people around them that love them just have to kind of adapt and understand that. And that's what I was getting out of this book, and why I power read through all 4 of these volumes within the last 2 days. And it's hard sometimes for me to get through some of these. It's the opposite of that Swamp Thing book, where by the end of it, I'm just kind of skimming pages. This I was really into. I could have done another, if we weren't pressed for time, I could have done another 2 volumes of these.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's kind of crazy to sit here and think that was more than 2 years worth of comics that you just read. I mean, because that's 24 issues if it's monthly, and it was a total of 28. So it was 2 years and 4 months if it came out monthly, which is crazy to think about how you ingested that in a few hours and wanted more, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, most when we do these source materials, by the end of the book, I'm done with this. Please, can we talk about something else now?
Right.
I want more Jessica Jones.
I think what had happened is Marvel knew that, okay, well, we got to get this guy over here telling some of the main stories. So he couldn't continue to tell them.
Porn imprint. Let's get you on the main.
I love how, like, they want to make a statement that, hey, this is Marvel Max, and the first word bubble, the first bubble that pops up is just fuck. And that is the way to open up. Hey, it's Marvel Max, baby. All gloves are off.
I told you about the one comedian, the very first HBO special, and he's like, and because you couldn't curse on, look, comedians made their bones on Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was network. He was prime time. And so you had to really be clean on Johnny Carson. I think, and I don't know if this is a real true story or not, but I remember in the movie The Doors, they had the whole thing with, can you clean up, light my fire? And you can't say, girl, can we get much higher? This is network television, for Christ's sake. You can't bring up drugs. And so the comedian was talking about that. His name escapes me right at the moment. And he was like, we can curse. We can say anything we want. Fuck. You know? Years later, when I was watching, because I knew about that because there was a documentary on the HBO comedy specials, and they were interviewing him, and he was like, I wish I had been a little more creative.
Well.
So very similar here. It's just like, hey, we don't have a comics code to deal with. We're not selling this to little kids. There's a big sign on the front of this comic that says mature readers only. We are writing it for the neckbeards.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, how are we going to set ourselves apart? What are we going to do? How are we going to set the tone? I don't know. Have a fat guy yell fuck on the first page.
Right.
Well, that'll be familiar at least.
Right. And another accomplishment by Bendis here is that he's taking with Alias, he's taking a kind of unknown character, and he is spinning a tale, which is almost the closest way to getting an independent book out of Marvel. Because you said you kind of like these independent books. Well, it's under Marvel. I want to take and he does this with other characters, specifically the villain at the end. He takes a character that's not very well known and then turns around and tells a story that makes you go, holy shit. So with Jessica Jones, that's obviously what I think he's trying to do here, is taking this somewhat unknown character and he's telling a gritty noir tale with them, and he's doing a good job. So, all right.
So have you read the publication history on the Wikipedia page? Alias was one of the titles that launched Marvel's R-rated Max imprint. Written by Bendis and illustrated for most of its run by Michael Gaydos, with covers by David Mack. Bendis relates in a text piece on the letters page of the book's final issue that it was one of the reasons the imprint was created. Marvel publishing president Bill Jemas read a draft of the script for the first issue of Alias, which characteristically starts with the word fuck, and explains why couldn't we publish this. Being under the Max imprint imposed certain other limitations on what the creators could do in the series. Bendis gave this as one of the reasons for ending the series and moving the characters to the Pulse. Some of the flashbacks to Jessica Jones are part drawn inside the classic 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s Marvel comic issues. So I think that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, our next story is titled B-Level.
Alias issues 6 through 9. B-Level. Written by Brian Michael Bendis. Art by Michael Gaydos. Lettered by Richard Starkings. Colored by Matthew Hollingsworth. Jessica Jones meets with Carol Danvers for lunch, where they reminisce about their Avengers days and discuss Jessica's romantic prospects. Carol advises against dating Luke Cage, suggesting Scott Lang instead, but their lunch is cut short when Carol gets called away on Avengers business. Later, Jessica takes on a case involving a woman suspecting her husband of exploring gay chat rooms. While handling the case, a mysterious young man appears in Jessica's office by the name of Malcolm, who is quite a fan. Malcolm asks Jessica if he can work for her, but she quickly dismisses him. Shortly after, a distressed woman named Jane Jones arrives, revealing that her husband, Rick Jones, has been missing for weeks. Jane explains that Rick has been absent for extended periods, but never this long. Despite Jessica's initial doubts about their relation, she agrees to help. Jessica's investigation leads her to a bookstore to learn more about Rick through his memoir, Sidekick. In the park, a girl named Amy identifies Jessica's powers and mentions Rick's reputation as a songwriter performing at a bar called Ultimate. That night, Jessica attends Rick's performance and confronts him, only for Rick to flee, fearing she might be a Kree or Skrull agent. Catching up to him, Jessica convinces Rick that she's there to help on behalf of his wife, Jane. Rick reveals he avoids his wife to keep her safe from dangers linked to his superhero life, labeling her as a bit unstable. After a tense chase, Rick confides in Jessica about the bounty on his head following the Kree-Skrull War and his fallout with Captain America over his memoir. Jessica suggests seeking help from Reed Richards, but when they are denied entry at the Baxter Building, Rick panics and disappears into the New York crowd. Jessica loses Rick in the city, but updates both the Avengers and Jane about his situation. Returning to her office, she finds the mysterious man, Malcolm, again and learns from Jarvis that the real Rick Jones is in Los Angeles. Realizing the man she's been helping is an impersonator, Jessica meets Jane and the fake Rick in the park, where they appear happy together. Instead of confronting him, she leaves. Jessica then arrives at a Starbucks where she has a conversation with a man entering the shop. At the end of their talk, we find out that this is her other client's husband, Dr. Curtis Moss, who was lured there by Jessica, under the assumption he was going to meet someone from the chat room. Jessica advises Moss to be truthful with his wife before reflecting on her conversation with Rick about their shared feeling of being outsiders in the superhero world.
I hated the story, but this is one of those, as much as I love Bendis' dialogue and his writing style, this one went overboard.
Okay.
So volumes 2, 3, and 4 are fantastic, and I don't have this quibble with the rest of it. But I'll tell you, reading, I was worried that the rest of it was going to be like this. So we talked about the opening panel to issue one of her clients is yelling "fuck," and we don't need to beat that horse again. And it's okay. As sort of a planting of flags and saying this is what we're doing with this comic book, okay, I can deal with that. Jessica Jones being a potty mouth because she's a New Yorker, she's traumatized, she's this, she's that. Okay, I get why she struggles with decent communication. And having the Rick Jones guys, every other word is fuck, and him, it was grating on my nerves.
He's very manic. It's so weird because you're looking at this as
a fake way.
Well, I guess, yeah.
So here's the thing. I don't think it's badly written. I think he was going for a certain kind of character and a certain presentation, and I think he actually nails it. The problem is I hate that character.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this about one of the shows. I think, I don't remember what. I reviewed something recently. Oh, it was the Bike Riders. Jodie Comer's character is great. And Jodie Comer gives a stellar performance. We all said she should be nominated, at the very least, nominated for a Best Actress. Also the most annoying character I've ever seen on film. Wanted to punch her in the solar plexus. And that's not Jodie Comer. I want to punch this character for being an annoying bitch.
Okay.
I said that on the podcast at the time. And I want to punch fake Rick Jones because he doesn't really know Rick Jones. He doesn't know how Rick Jones behaves. So he's concocted this Rick Jones identity out of whole cloth and has decided to play Rick Jones like he's done an 8-ball of coke and hasn't slept for a week. And it was annoying because I've met those kinds of people and I want to punch them in the solar plexus.
Yeah, I understand.
I struggled with this. I was having to follow this character. And here's the thing, almost every time Jessica Jones gets involved in a case, I'm invested in her finding the person. I want her to solve the case. I feel bad for these people. I want there to be justice. I want these people to be saved. And I wanted him to be run over by the truck from Maximum Overdrive.
Which, Green Goblin right on the front.
Yeah, you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I get it. To me, what I think drove the book for me, or that story, when it come to Rick Jones, is I just knew it was so out of character. I didn't know what the hell was going on with Rick Jones because, I don't know, I'd say 90% of the story, I believed it was Rick Jones.
Well, that's the thing. About 50% of it, I'm just like, did Rick Jones do an 8-ball of coke? What are we doing here?
Going on with this guy. Right. So I think that to me is added to part of the mystery, and I wanted Jessica Jones to get down to the bottom of it. Right. Maybe I could use a little bit of help with your interpretation of what happened at the end of the story, because she shows up, she's going to confront Rick Jones. She just finds out, well, fake Rick Jones, fake Diesel, fake Razor Ramon, fake Kane. She decides to go and confront Rick Jones, but stops. Am I interpreting it right where she just sees that Jane Jones is happy and she's just like, okay, as long as you're content.
She thinks she's married the real Rick Jones. The guy is not Rick Jones. And Jessica Jones is like, I was just hired to find him. It's one of the things I like about her character is another kind of character written slightly differently, involves herself in things she has no business.
Right.
Takes it upon herself with her own sense of right and wrong, her own sense of justice to correct things, and she inserts herself in places she doesn't belong. Where Jessica Jones is like, she hired me to find him. I found him. She's happy. I don't need to be involved in this any further.
Right.
Which I like.
Yeah, and that's fine, and that was kind of how I interpreted it as well. And then she has the moment at it's Dr. Curtis Moss, I think is what it is. He shows up at the bar, and I was like, oh, she's just going to have some kind of innocuous meeting with this guy and share some words. Guy walks in, and they have this long conversation as she is talking sort of about what happened with Rick Jones and all this other stuff. And then at the very end, she had set this up in that gay chat room for them both to meet so she can confront this guy, and she just kind of lays it out there, which I thought was pretty cool. So I mean, as far as I know, I can see this being my least favorite as well, because I'm trying to think if I think the other ones hold some really good weight.
Yes.
I'm not saying that this one sucks. I'm just saying that out of all we got, I think this would probably be on the bottom of my list.
Nobody annoys me in any one of these stories.
Not like fake Rick Jones. All right, well, let's go ahead and close up shop on this one, unless you have anything else you wanted to say.
No, I think had I been reading these as floppies back in 2001, I think I would have stayed with it because of the strength of the character, but the Rick Jones story really tested my patience.
Okay.
And it ends with issue number 9. Issue number 10 is the bit with J. Jonah Jameson, which we'll talk about next episode. That would have won me over, and I would have stayed to the end.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now, if I had been reading this back in 2001 and got to issue number 9, and it was like, oh, this Rick Jones story, I'd have been on the fence.
I will tell you also, it kind of tested the reader a little bit with the shifts. Do you remember how, as you're turning the page, now all of a sudden you're reading a
God. So I have this is my only concrete complaint about reading these books is half of the time it's a single page, read it across in blocks, and other times it's dual page and you have to read across the whole fucking thing. So I had to read the page 2 and 3 times because half the time I'm like, wait, what? At the very end of the book where she's telling Luke that she's pregnant and I didn't realize it was the full 2-page spread.
Oh, so you're like, why am I jumping around in conversation here? What the hell?
It's kind of a conversation.
Yeah.
And that was annoying, and the block print in the edges.
Oh yeah.
The column print in the edges. There was a couple of times like I'm not reading all this.
Yeah.
I was like that doom sound from TikTok. It was just like that's a lot of words. I'm not reading it. It wasn't quite Kevin Smith, Daredevil, Guardian, where the fuck that name of the book was, where I was like, I shot the book. I was wordy.
They do some. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of point this out to anybody that's listening that hasn't read it.
In hell, kind of a reader. You know what I mean?
Ah, yeah, buddy. I don't blame you. That was one of the things that kind of stood out to me when what would end up happening throughout these books is that, okay, 5 pages you could go by with maybe a few words, and you're just watching the action unveil, and then all of a sudden it's wall text.
Why?
Yeah. And they do some interesting things in the book here too with this Rick Jones story, B-level. They actually are taking pictures of, or I shouldn't say pictures, but it's like you're reading the book that Rick Jones wrote, and it's all in prose. Yeah. It's all sitting there, and you're like, oh man. And did that add to the story? I mean, I honestly don't think that it did.
I said, fuck this. I'm not like I don't.
I
care.
Fucking read them.
I'm not reading the fictional character's fictional biography. Fuck off. I got the gist. Move it on.
And again, that's probably, it's just kind of like, oh, hey, we're throwing some things out there to kind of here's some.
And I think part of it is I have to read 28 comic books in a 2 days period on top of a job and a girlfriend and kid and a second job, by the way. So I don't have time for all of that. But I think go back to 2000 and I have more time on my hands and I'm only reading 1 issue at a time. Maybe I read all that.
Yeah.
But today, in the year of our Lord, 2024, no, sir.
No, thanks.
I'm almost 50 years old. Go fuck yourself.
All right. Well, that right there was the first of our 4 episodes we are going to be doing on Alias. And that was the Alias Investigations, issues 1 through 5, and then issues 6 through 9, which was B-level. Mark Radulich.
Looking at the wiki, it's actually just known as Alias, which I didn't realize. I think they added the Jessica Jones later, but the book is just called Alias.
Right. Not to be confused with the Jennifer Garner series, which I've done that.
Every time I have to Google it, I have to make sure I write comic book.
Yeah. And at one point, I thought it was the same, and then I was like, "Wait, there's none of that happening in here. That is not the case."
Jennifer Garner is.
Nope.
Judy, everyone's mom. Just
they changed the name and everything.
Up the butt drunk. It's the hard note. Actually, you know what it reminded me of? Last thing I'm going to say, and I promise you move on to the next episode. Do you remember when Ronnie and I, before Ronnie, I don't know, had an existential crisis and now looks perpetually tired? Back when Ronnie was motivated to do podcasts, do you remember, we did Stumptown with the broad who plays Maria Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jessica Jones kind of reminds me of a darker Stumptown.
Okay.
Like, that kind of character. And it's one of the reasons why I enjoyed the show as much as I did, and the books to one degree or another. It was very much, again, that woman who's been through a lot, doing PI work, keeping up with the men, but isn't a busy businesswoman who don't need no man.
Right. All right, man. Go ahead and do some plugs here so we can send them on out.
I'm just going to go ahead and if you listen to traditional audio, all of my podcasts are on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. If you like to see my beautiful fuzzy face, we're on YouTube, W2M Network. We're on Twitch, W2M Network. But if you ain't got that kind of time, and you ain't got time to bleed or for the pain, and you just want to see short clips of what it is we're talking about, the best 10 to 30 minutes that I can find in any one podcast, it's right there on the screen. Or if you're listening to this, it's at Mark Radulich, MarkRadulich on TikTok. And if you've only got a minute and 30 seconds, and that's all your attention span can handle, check out my Instagram at MarkKind76.
All right. Yeah, folks, go check out the @SourceMattCast on Twitter. You should be able to see all the fun stuff that we do here on the Source Material Comics feed. Me and Mark hanging out on Source Material. Me and Evan Bevins discussing Marvel Snap, and of course the 90s centric comic book podcast, Unspoken Issues, where we talk nothing but 90s comics. All right, we're out of here. That's Mark. I'm Jesse. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.